As of midday, Prime Minister and the Chairman of the National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, John Bresenio, has declared that Belize is under hurricane watch along its entire coastline. Following the Prime Minister's declaration of a hurricane watch for the entire coast of Belize, the Red One flag was hoisted above the NEMO headquarters in Belmopan. Tropical storm Lisa is presently on a track towards Belize and is expected to make landfall as a hurricane within 36 to 48 hours. As of 6 p.m., Lisa was located about 630 miles east-southeast of Belize City, moving west at 14 miles per hour with maximum sustained winds of 40 miles per hour. The storm is expected to continue on a similar track for the next few days, passing Jamaica by later today, north of the northern coast of Honduras by Tuesday, and approaching the Belizean coast by late Wednesday, with landfall expected late Wednesday or early Thursday morning as a Category 1 hurricane.
The system is currently disorganized. It is being affected by wind shear, vertical wind shear, causing most of the thunderstorm activity to be to the east of the center. Actually, the center is rather exposed, indicating that the system is weak. And also, there's a good amount of dry mid-level air in the environment, especially to the west of the system. And that's precisely the reason why we are having fair weather. However, indications are that the environment will become a bit more moist and that the wind shear will slacken or weaken and allow the system to intensify gradually. The impacts that we're expecting is that the system will produce, first of all, rainfall in the amounts of 2 to 4 inches per day, starting on Wednesday through to Wednesday night and Thursday. We are looking at possibility of late tomorrow evening, 24 hours before landfall, where you can more precisely pinpoint the location of landfall. Now, I do want to stress again, it's important that we do not focus on the exact location of landfall because these systems have impact beyond where the center makes landfall. So even though we will be able to pinpoint a location, we are going to advise residents not to focus only on that particular location because there are impacts beyond that point.
With heavy rainfall starting on Wednesday and continuing into Thursday, flooding in low-lying and flood-prone areas is expected as the ground is already saturated.
In addition to the rainfall and the flooding due to rainfall, there's likely to be coastal flooding due to storm surge with about 3 to 5 feet possible, especially to the north, well, to the north of the center actually, of where the system makes landfall. And that could result in, like I said, an increase in the level of flooding for coastal residents. And in terms of a Category 1 hurricane, those are systems with winds of 74 to 95 miles per hour. So we're expecting those winds to affect areas just around the center where the system makes landfall. We do not and will not specify a specific location of landfall at the moment. There's some uncertainty. So we want residents across the entire country of Belize to be prepared for the system and for the possibility of a landfalling hurricane. The forecast cone, as we always say, gives us a probability that the system could make landfall anywhere within that cone. And important for residents to note is that as the system gets nearer to Belize, you will see the cone narrowing. That indicates that we are more clear of where it will make landfall. However, because the cone narrow, there will be locations within the country that will not be covered by the cone. And the misconception that some people will get from that is that those areas will not be affected. It is important to note, and we saw that with the situation in Florida, that there will be impacts outside of that cone. And hence the reason again why we want the residents across this entire country to be on the alert.
According to Chief Meteorologist at the National Meteorological Service of Belize, Ronald Gordon, Lisa is not expected to intensify beyond a Category 1 hurricane.
Even though we have made a lot of progress in predicting the path or the track of these systems, when it comes to intensification, and especially rapid intensification, there is still some work to do there. We are going by all the knowledge that we have, all the factors that we are looking at, and everything that we are seeing is not indicating that the system will intensify beyond a category 1. Even though the wind shear will soften, it will still be a bit more moderate wind shear, especially to the north. The environment, like I said, is relatively dry. So, and if the storm is moving relatively fast as well, it's not those systems that slow down and intensify. So those factors in general would not favor rapid intensification. One factor that will support intensification is the warm waters. We're looking at about 84 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit in our area. So the combination of those factors and looking at the model and all those things, it is not showing rapid intensification at the moment.
A Category 1 hurricane has sustained winds between 74 to 95 miles per hour, according to the National Weather Service, NWS. These are very dangerous winds that can cause some damage to roofs, shingles, vinyl sidings, and gutters on well-built homes. Those are some of the impacts that we could experience here in Belize.
Going back into the archives, I saw 3 systems making landfall on Belize in November. One of them was Lara in 1971. I think that was a tropical storm. And there was a system in 1931 before we had NEMO for hurricanes that made landfall also in November. And there's another one way back in the 18 change that made landfall in November. But as you rightly alluded to, they're very rare.
The public is advised to put your family emergency plan into action and check your emergency food, water, and medical supplies. Check on the elderly and persons with disabilities. Make early preparations to leave high-risk areas. Voluntarily relocate to a safe location before the system makes landfall if you live in a low-lying area or vulnerable coastal community. Know which shelter you will go to. Secure your home and your important documents. Secure loose objects and flammable material. In the case of municipalities, clear drains to reduce flooding. Residents are advised to continue monitoring the system very closely and to follow official information coming from NEMO and the National Meteorological Service. All businesses should implement their disaster plans. NEMO must be prepared to open adequate shelters wherever necessary and to conduct search and rescue operations where lives are at risk. Tropical storm Lisa has spun up in the Caribbean Sea south of Jamaica, on track to strike Belize late Wednesday as the 12th storm of this year's Atlantic hurricane season. But while Belizeans are just hearing about the storm, the National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, has been monitoring the system since last Wednesday. To date, all committees are on watch, says National Coordinator of the National Emergency Management Organization, retired Colonel Shelton DeFore.
We notified all our national committees and district committees for them to convene an emergency meeting to go through their state of readiness. That was done except for CAIO, which is going through that process, that meeting as we speak. The next area of operational readiness was that of our logistics, where we checked the stocks in our warehouses to ensure that we had, the basic supplies to start off the operation and to be procured, which we're in the process of, gathering some additional supplies. Our search and rescue component was alerted. BSERT, Coast Guard, BDF, all those critical uniformed services that will assist us in terms of getting ready for any potential rescue. The Human Resource Management Committee also requested some assistance to prepare. They're responsible for the public officers that will go into the shelters. The district coordinators provided a list of shelters that they're likely to open in the event that we have to open shelters for this tropical cyclone that is facing Belize.
Today, they advised the residents of the islands of Abergis Key and Key Cocker and low-lying areas of Belize City to begin making plans to move to shelters or other areas as soon as possible.
The window of opportunity to make certain decision closes or narrows every hour. And so the islands of San Pedro and Kikaka, in their deliberation in terms of scenario planning, they have to look at what time they would tell residents you need to evacuate and get off the island if they're in a vulnerable situation, because once the window of opportunity closes, sea state will not allow us to move people by sea once the conditions don't permit. So we then have to go to plan B for coastal communities like San Pedro, Kikaka, and some of the other keys where they have to shelter in place. So San Pedro have also looked at their worst case scenario in terms of sheltering in place, because this is the second time that we see the system and it has sped up a bit. It's now moving at 14 miles per hour, which means the time to evacuate will reduce. For the people in San Pedro, shelter is in Belmopan. The plan is to move them to UB and Gymnasium because we have a shelter evacuation plan. And so that is where people from San Pedro and the Keys would come in from.
Apart from the Keys, residents living in communities considered as Albion Islands here in the north are also asked to relocate in a timely manner if necessary.
They have to pay keen attention and monitor the rainfall events and look at the rise of the river through the river monitors and the district emergency committee that we have in Orinjoa that will be in close coordination with the village chairpersons to know exactly if and when they will need to move up to higher grounds or to move out from that particular area. Fortunately, in some sense, the Rio Hondo is a river that takes a while to flood, depending on the amount of rainfall in Mexico and in Belize, and as flooding over a period of time. It takes sometimes up to a week or a week and a half before it floods. And when it floods real bad, as we know the Douglas experiences, and it stays up high for a long period of time. And so they just need to be very vigilant, listen. Once we have indicators, the Hydrological department responsible for flood forecast and information, they'll be putting out their bulletin.
The National Hydrological Service, NHS, has warned that several river areas are expected to flood due to incoming tropical storm Lisa. According to the NHS, over the next few days, waters in the area designated as Region 7, which include the Rio Hondo at Blue Creek North and the downstream at Santa Cruz, San Antonio, San Roman, and Douglas to the coast, and on the New River at Tower Hill and Caledonia, are expected to remain above normal levels. However, these areas are expected to increase to flood stage once Tropical Storm Lisa arrives. Waters in Region 9, which includes the Macal River, Mopan River, and Belize River, as well as the Crooked Tree Lagoon waters, are expected to continue to recede for the next 2 days, also reaching flood stage with the passage of Tropical Storm Lisa. In Region 11, water levels at the Saboon River and the Southern Lagoon at Gales Point Village will continue to recede until the storm arrives. In watersheds on the eastern slopes of the Mayan Mountains and on the City River at Kendall Bridge, decreasing levels expected, the NHS said. On the Swayze and Bladen branches of the Monkey River, the Deep River at Medina Bank, and on the Rio Grande at San Pedro Colombia and at Big Falls South, below normal and decreasing levels expected. On the Moho River at Blue Creek South and Ann Jordan, near normal and decreasing levels are expected. On the Tamash River at Creeksarco, below normal and steady levels are expected to continue in the meantime. Water levels in Region 13, which include Sarstoon River, will remain normal and steady until Tropical Storm Lisa makes landfall.